Hello, Alex here, and in this video I want to talk about the Zeniko ZA12, a compact flash with a universally compatible non-TTL automatic mode and my favorite control scheme of any of these mini flashes to date, bar none. Let's get into it. A few months ago I got an email from Instro, who are a distributor of lighting products from Zeniko and other brands, asking if I'd be interested in reviewing the ZA12 coming up to its launch. This flash is one of the many flashes I've been asked to review and have a look at ever since the Godox reviews have kind of taken off, which is what most of my flash reviews are on. And I don't have any kind of exclusivity agreement, but this is the first flash that I've been approached about that I actually wanted to look at, especially given its compact form factor and its thyristor based auto mode. So I've been using this flash over the last couple of months, and I do get to keep it in exchange for making this review, and I'd like to thank Instro for their support, and links to their Amazon stores will be in the video description down below. Announced at the tail end of 2025 by Zeniko and retailing for about $50 US, the ZA12 is, like I said, a compact flash with a universally compatible automatic mode with a thyristor, as well as full manual control and a good if not extremely mind-blowing maximum power output in a gorgeous housing with an amazing user interface. It follows directly on from the smaller ZF04 and ZF08 that came before, which are more like your competitors to something like the Godox IM20, whereas this thing is much more well featured and more powerful. Inside the box, you're first presented with the flash itself, and under that you've got an accessory box, which includes a diffuser that just pushes directly onto the front of the flash, a thick manual in both Chinese and English with a bunch of handy reference charts and technical information, a Type-C charging cable, and of course a soft carry pouch. The design is reminiscent of many dual-dial hot shoe light meters, and under my own classification of flashes, this is a mini flash, coming in at 55 by 47 by 36mm and weighing only 60 grams, making it about the same size and weight as a set of wireless earbuds. The build employs a mix of materials, with the outer wall or rim made of aluminium, same for the control dials, while the top plate, shoe mount, and power button are plastic. This balances build quality and weight, so it makes sense, and the flash is available in two colorways: the mixed black and silver version that I have here, and the nearly all black version with silver dials. Up front, you've got the xenon flash bulb behind a Fresnel lens, and beside that, a light sensor that controls the auto mode, which I'll come back to later. The specs don't cite a guide number, so I measured it myself at around 6.7 meters at ISO 100. That's half a stop less powerful than GN8, so for simplicity I'll call it guide number 6.5 or around 20 feet. That puts it about half a stop less powerful than the likes of the Godox IM20 and IM22, which admittedly are smaller flashes, but they don't have an automatic mode where this thing does. There's nothing on the right hand side, but on the left you'll find a USB Type-C port for charging. The ZA12 uses an integrated 300 mAh 7.4 volt cell for power, promising around 400 full power flash pops on a full charge, and it should take around 70 minutes over Type-C to charge from empty to full, which matches my own experience. The stated recycle time between full power flash pops is about 2.5 seconds, which is pretty bang on in my experience, though when I've been out in very cold conditions, with a real feel of like -5, it has slowed down to like 3.5, which is still really solid for something that's not super high-end professional, weather-sealed, multi-hundreds of euros kind of flash. The coverage of the flash is also really solid, comfortably covering both a 35mm lens as well as a 28, though I haven't tested anything significantly wider. The only thing you'll find on the rear is the power/fire button. Like any such flash, hold it to power the unit on or off, and press it once to trigger the flash manually. It can also be used to perform a reset routine if the flash misbehaves for any reason. Just hold that button down and turn the left dial one full turn in either direction to reset the flash. On the bottom, there's an off-center shoe mount using a sprung friction fit and the hot shoe with a single contact pin. If your camera has that silver central pin in the hot shoe, this flash should work. Simple as that. The top of the unit is what you're going to be looking at the majority of the time, with the two dials used to control and switch between the manual and automatic flash modes. Of course, you have the Zeniko logo, and then under the settings marker, there's a little LED indicator. It's green when the flash is ready to fire, red when recharging between shots, and it breathes slowly in pale yellow when the flash is charging. Starting with the right dial, there are markings in red to control the flash manually from full power down to 1/64th power in hold-stop increments. Like with all the other flashes, I've put together a little flash power chart that you can screenshot or download from my website at shaka1277.com/flash, or you can set that right dial to match your ISO setting, which engages the auto mode, regulated by the light sensor on the front of the flash. In this mode, once you set your ISO with the right dial and aperture with the left dial, the flash will automatically regulate its net power by cutting off the flash and dumping the spare power in the capacitors once enough light has bounced back from the subject, so it knows that your subject has been reasonably well illuminated. This, whether or not it's actually a thyristor, is what most people would know as a thyristor flash. I'm going to keep calling flashes like that thyristor flashes anyway. Like any such flash, your maximum output is reduced in this mode, and Zeniko included a comprehensive table in the manual to give you the effective ranges. One other important thing to note is that when you're in manual mode on the right dial, the aperture setting on the left dial doesn't do anything, but it must still be set to an actual F number for the flash to work. The flash is very small, and in particular, it's very lightweight for its size. The use of mixed materials is a very smart move in my opinion, because aside from adding gorgeous aesthetics, and this thing is a very beautiful flash, let's be real, it also improves the build quality quite a bit without significantly adding to the weight. Selectively applying metal to this outer rim, as such, where it's most likely to sustain an impact if you drop it or knock the camera against something, that's quite smart. And same thing with the dials, giving them a bit more sturdiness without compromising on making the actual flash a giant brick. I said this a couple of times, but I really, really do love the control scheme. It's so easy to use and so intuitive. Manual mode is something you can either learn or use a reference table, like in your pocket, screenshot it to your phone, or again, stuck to the top plate of the flash, and that works great. And if you want to go to the auto mode, you just set your ISO, set your aperture, and that's it. It is so simple to move between these things. As much as I love using the Godox IA32, clicking buttons and scrolling, it's not as intuitive, or I guess, it kind of drags you out of the moment when you're shooting, when you're just clicking in 1/3 stops to get your ISO set right, where you can just flick this dial really, really easily. And it's so easy to flick back and forth between manual and automatic flash, saying if you're shooting a subject that would be uh, problematic or troublesome for a thyristor, like someone wearing a high-vis vest, you can switch to manual mode, quickly take the shot, and switch back super easily. The fact that you have universal compatibility is great with the automatic mode. Okay, you can buy an old thyristor flash, like a Canon 155A or something like that on eBay, but those things take 4 AA cells. They're going to be heavier than this entire thing. Some of them are more powerful, but putting old, potentially dodgy electronics that might fry your camera on a new modern camera, no thank you. So universal compatibility with something like this is great, especially when you don't have TTL on a lot of these compact flashes. So having any level of automation is better than having no automation. And it gives you just some flexibility, whether you're doing candid street portraits, photographing your kids, your pets, taking pictures at a party. That's why we use an automatic flash, right? Because we want them to make our lives easier. So having the compatibility to just throw it on any of your cameras is very, very nice. This isn't the biggest flash ever, but I'm a big fan of the shoe mount being offset, because it means for quite a number of cameras where the hot shoe is offset from the center point of the lens, the flash remains more centered relative to the optical axis, but it also reduces blockage of your settings dials. So you can see things like your shutter speed quite a bit more easily, preventing it from getting in the way of you actually using the camera. This thing is strictly an on-camera flash. Unfortunately, you can only use it if you have a hot shoe or a hot shoe to PC sync adapter, because there's no optical sensor, which is fair enough, but also no PC sync ports. You can't just plug, your lens or your camera directly into the flash and have it trigger that way. You have to have a hot shoe, and that's going to limit its applicability for quite a number of people. Okay, film cameras. I work and live in the film world, so it's easy to think about the certain like M mount or M39 cameras or older SLRs and my TLR that don't have a hot shoe. But even some modern digital cameras don't work well with the hot shoe, with the kind of non-standard, non-OEM flashes, either because they lack the center pin entirely, or even things like the Minolta CLE doesn't work well with a lot of these flashes because it seems to expect to use the Minolta flash for some reason. So I use the V word, the versatility word, a lot when I talk about these flashes. Not having the versatility of a PC sync is something that I do think kind of stands against this flash. You want to stand out, you really need to have that feature. Not all of the new flashes that have come out in the last year, and there have been tons in the compact flash space, have a PC sync port, but it's one of those things that takes like a a B or an A tier product up to an A tier or an S tier potentially. Like I mentioned, this flash is about half a stop less powerful than the IM20 or IM22, but you gain the auto mode in exchange, and I think that's a fair compromise. Except my particular copy of the flash is constantly underexposing. I need to set my aperture one step darker on the flash or my ISO one step lower to make the flash overexpose so I can get good exposure. So your maximum power output in automatic mode, at least for my copy, is quite a bit less than I would like, and I've found myself taking quite a few shots where I thought a flash like this should have been able to handle it, but this thing wasn't quite able to. And in those cases, it can in the manual mode because the max power is there, that extra stop. And that does seem to make a difference actually in a lot of the kind of, f4 to f8, ISO 200 to ISO 800, 1 to 5 meters kind of shots that I would use a flash like this for. And that, I don't know, I have definitely missed shots because of this, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Lastly, there's no sort of battery charge level indicator, and I think that would be relatively easy to implement with a firmware update, which I don't think you could do with this, but maybe for a future batch or future revision of the product, that LED has green, red, and yellow, so if you can hold the power button and use the left dial to do a reset routine, maybe you could hold the button and use the right dial to get it to tell you the battery level with a traffic light system. Red, it's low, yellow, it's about half, green, it's more or less full. I think that would be something that's quite nice to have because with an integrated cell, you're not going to be able to replace it when it eventually does, lose its capacity over the years. So avoiding unnecessarily charging it would be nice. I've been topping this up pretty much every time I go to use it, and there is the potential that I am damaging it long term, and it might last, 5 years instead of 8 years. We're still talking about quite a long time. But I think having some way to tell how much charge you have would be quite nice because most of the competitors to this flash do offer that. So those are my thoughts on the Zeniko ZA12 after a few months of use. I'm really glad that I've had quite a lot of time to get used to using this thing and get comfortable with it because I have enjoyed using it. My big gripe is the fact that my unit is underexposing and that does limit my maximum effective power. Fine, I'm not expecting this to be an f11 ISO 100 street photography flash, but like I said, there are shots that I've tried to take that I have missed because this thing has not been able to reach the power level that I've kind of expected from it. But nevertheless, I'm actually still using it all the time. When I go out, I tend to bring a 2-flash kit at most. If I need power, I'll use the IA32, and if I need something smaller, I usually bring something like the IM20, IM22. But regardless of whether Zeniko, Godox, or someone else come out and make that holy grail flash, this thing has been very fun to use, especially with the Zeiss where I think it looks absolutely stunning. It's very simple to use, the control scheme's gorgeous, it's just a really nice flash, the power level is just the one thing for me, but working within its kind of scope of use and within its limitations, I have not been disappointed with the results, at least when I'm mindful and I'm present enough to actually kind of work within them. So I'd like to thank Instro again for reaching out to give me the chance to try out the ZA12, and in particular for giving me plenty of time to have a look at it over the holidays. If you want to grab something from Zeniko, check the links in the video description down below. But that is all I have to say for this video, so stay safe, and bye bye for now. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at Shako1277 for new pictures every day. If you like this video and enjoy what I do on the channel, please consider subscribing or checking out my Patreon where the tiers start at just €1 per month.